How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we studying Daf Daled, Daf 104 of Masechta Menachos. Friends, we are almost at the finish line. I believe, so it's right now Friday afternoon. I think that at this time next week, God willing, I will be recording Masechta Chulin. Can you imagine? I think this time next week will be the first half of Masechta Chulin. Wish me luck, because usually I'm like cramming on Friday afternoon. And, the first half of the Masechta, I want to make sure that we can get off on the right foot. I'll go upon him. We'll worry about that next week. This week, today's daf is Gewalt. We discuss two things: donating wine libations, and secondly, donating oil libations. This is interesting. Let's talk about wine libations for a second. Can I simply donate wine to the Beis Hamikdash? Just wine to be poured down the shisen on the mizbeach. Spoiler alert: you can donate wine. The focus of the discussion is going to be around how much do you have to donate? How many logs, how many lugin of wine do you have to donate? And we'll have a similar discussion about donating oil libations. Can oil be donated alone to the Beis Hamikdash? It's going to be a machlokes. We are also going to finish the 12th parak of Masechta Menachos, which means that tomorrow we will be beginning the 13th and final parak of Masechta Menachos. So really, where the end of the Masechta is mamish within reach. It's very, very exciting. Zvachim and Menachos back to back has been quite the experience and quite the journey. Thanks for doing it with me, friends. Let us jump in to Daf Kuf Daled of Masechta Menachos. Friends, we begin on Daf Kuf Daled Amid Aleph at the Mishnah, about, somewhere probably between 5 and 10 lines into the Amid. Zogt the Mishnah: Ein misnadvin log shnayim v'chamisha aval misnadvin shlosha v'arba v'shisha u'mishisha u'lemayla. Okay, amazing. The Mishnah teaches us that yes, you can donate wine for the mizbeach. You could simply donate wine for the mizbeach. However, there are some details that you have to be aware. You cannot donate 1 log of wine, or 2 logs of wine, or 5 logs of wine. Everything else is okay. Why is that? Because even though you are, this is how I understand it, I hope I understand it correctly. Even though you are donating wine alone, and the Kohen is just going to take it and pour it down the shisen on the Mizbeach, right? On the Mizbeach, if you walk up the Mizbeach, up the ramp of the Mizbeach, and turn left, now of course normally you would go only right to the right, as we learned about Masechta Zvachim, and walk all around, but if you were to go up the ramp and turn left, so at that first corner, the southwestern corner, there were 2, almost like, let's call them cup-like things, bowl-like things, and whatever. Without getting into the details, we'll get there in Masechta Midos. But basically, one was for water, for Nisach HaMayim on Sukkos, Simchas Beis HaShoeva, and I guess Simchas Beis HaShoeva maybe was the anyways. With the, I believe the Nisach Mayim, if I remember correctly, was with the Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, I think. Anyways, that was for the Nisach HaYayin on Sukkos, and the other one was for the Nisach, that was for the Nisach HaMayim on Sukkos, and the other one is for the Nisach HaYayin. So if you would donate wine to the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohen Pasha just pour it down that, what's called the shisen. Now, you cannot donate just 1 log of wine. Why is that? Well, because even though the wine is being donated on its own, it's not being donated as part of a korban. Nonetheless, generally, Nisuch HaYayin is as part of a korban, right? As we know, a sheep, there are 3 logs of oil, but also 3 logs of wine. A ram would have 4 logs of wine, and a cow would have 6 logs of wine. And we follow that kind of construct even when just donating wine to be libated on its own. So therefore, you would donate either 3 logs, which is what would, which is the amount that is meaning I'm trying to make a distinction, meaning you are donating it alone, but matching some kind of pre-existing amount of wine. So by a korban of a sheep, there are 3 loaves of wine. By a ram, there are 4 loaves of wine. And by a cow, there are 6 loaves of wine. So when donating wine independently, you are still going to match one of those amounts. And therefore, you could donate 3 loaves, that's fine. You want to donate 4 loaves, that's also fine, because that's the equivalent of what's used for a ram. If you want to donate 6 loaves, that's also fine, because that is also the equivalent of what's used for a cow. You can't donate 1 loaf, because what are you going to do with it, right? It's not the equivalent of anything, nor is 2. You can donate 3, you can donate 4, not 5, because what are you going to do with 5? You can donate 6. What gets interesting is that, as the Mishnah said, once you get to 6, at that point, basically all numbers are okay, because if you donate 7, well, you could just divide it in 2, right? Meaning 4 are align with a ram, and 3 align with a sheep. If you have 8, that's like the equivalent of 2 rams. 9, you could divide it up either 3 sheep or a cow and 1 sheep. Kilu. Basically, all other numbers can be divided up into configurations where they would align with amount of logs that are equivalent to different animals. But 1 log, there's no animal that has 1 log. 2 logs, no animal with 2 logs. 5 logs, what are you gonna, even if you take 3, you'll have 2 extras. If you take 4, you'll have 1 extra. So, kilu. But once you get to 6, it's good. Okay, I hope that I explained that well enough. So let's read the Mishnah again. So Emis Nadvin log, you can't donate just a log, Shnaim or 2 logs, B'chamisha or 5 logs. Aval, but Misnadvin Shlosha, you can donate 3 logs of wine, V'arba, 4 logs of wine, V'shisha and 6 logs of wine, Umishisha Ulamaila, and once you get to 6, basically all numbers above that are free game, because you could divide them up one way or another, somehow or another, that they would align with multiples of pre-existing amounts. 3 which aligns with sheep, 4 which aligns with rams, and 6 which aligns with cows. Get valdig. I'm going to take a schluck of tea, and then we will learn the Gemara. Now the Gemara asks an interesting question, a question that I don't know exactly how to define it literally, but I think I'm going to use the example that the Gemara gives in part of the definition. Now, says the Gemara, is there a fixation, a kvias, when it comes to nisachim, which is what we're talking about, the wine? Oh, ein kevel nisachim, or is there not a kvias, an establishment for the nisachim? What does that mean? Heichidami. So let's first take the example the Gemara gives and use that example to help us talk about what it means if there's keva or not. So kigon the aisi chamisha. Well, for example, if somebody brings, what happens? Where the Mishnah said you can't bring 5 loaves as a libation. What happens if somebody does bring 5 loaves? So then what do you do? So if we say that there is keva linisachim, so what that means is that the 5 loaves that were brought are a unit. They've been established together. They have to be offered together. And therefore, what are you going to do with 5 loaves? There's nothing you can do with these 5 loaves. So what you'll do is you'll add another loaf to make it 6 loaves. And then you can offer all of those together, right? And it would be the equivalent of what you would have for a korban of a cow. So just bring 1 more log, and that way everything can be offered together. Now, if you say that there's no keva when it comes to nisachim, well then we can view each log on its own, which means that if somebody were to bring 5 loaves, we'll say, okay, we got nothing to do with 5 loaves, but let's take 4 of them. 4 of them is the equivalent of the amount of loaves for a ram, and we'll offer those 4 loaves. Now we have an extra one remaining. What do you do with that? So there's 2 options, right? So it will go to nidava. What does that mean? It goes to nidava. So there's 2 options for what that can mean. One is that, so we have this extra log now. You could sell it, take the money, and put that money in the pushke. What pushke? And Hara Bayis, it's going to come up in the Gemara as well. And Hara Bayis, as we learned about initially in Masechta Shkalim, but also several times since then, that on Hara Bayis there were 13 pushkes, 13 boxes. And though part of one of those boxes, basically, you would be able to, we're going to talk about this in the Gemara. So without getting into the details, basically those boxes, you would be able to essentially put money in those boxes, and that money would be used towards communal offerings. Now, there were specific intentions for each box. The Gemara is going to talk about. Does it need its own unique box? We're not going to get into that level of detail right now. But the point is that there were these boxes and these collection boxes and higher bias, and theoretically you could sell that extra log, take the money, and put it in one of those pushkas, and then that money will then be spent on a kayetz hamizbeach, on a communal offering for when there's no offerings to be offered on the mizbeach, that it shouldn't be empty, that they'll offer one of these kayetz hamizbeach offerings from these public funds that have been collected from things like this moser nisachim. Alternatively, you can just say, hey, I have this extra log of wine. I hope I haven't been saying oil. If I've been saying oil, I'm talking about wine, just in case. So I have this extra log of wine. You could say, well, look, you can use this extra log of wine. Maybe other people have extra logs of wine, right? There's going to be a korban tamid, a communal offering that has nisuch yain with it. Maybe you can use this extra one. You could just basically donate it and say, hey, I have this extra log of wine. You can use it for your korbanos. Anyways, fine. So back to our question. Is there keva by nesachim or not? So if there is keva by nesachim, it means that these 5 logs are a unit. They have to be offered together. How are you going to offer 5 logs together? It's not 3, it's not 4, it's not 6. You can add one more, and then that'll be 6, and you'll offer them all together. Alternatively, if we say ein keva, that they haven't been established together, well then you could break them up then and say, okay, well, let's take 4 of them, offer those 4, which is the equivalent of the amount that's libated for a ram. So you can libate those 4, and in terms of the extra, so that it'll be donated one way or another, whether in a pushka or just donated directly with maybe the korban tamid azot. So now back in the Gemara, let's start over from the beginning of the Gemara. Ibaylu the kasha. Yesh kevel in nesachim. Is there keva for nesachim? Are they established together? Or ain't kevel in nesachim? Or are they independent to the extent that you can kind of break them up into different configurations? Heichidami also. Kigon the Aisi Chamisha, for example, if a person brought to the Beis HaMikdash 5 loaves of wine. If you said there's no kevel in nesachim, so we can break them up and configure them in different ways. Okay, so Moshe Chumakriv Aiba Minayu, so offer, right, libate 4 of the 5, the chazi la'ayil, which is an amount that would be fit for a ram. So that's all good. Take 4 of them, libate them. Ve'idach, with the outstanding, with the remaining one, have a nidav. Well, it's you donate it. Donate it. Either sell it, take the money, and put it in a pushke for a kayetz mizbech, or you can push it, say, hey, here's an extra wine. I know that they use a lot of wine here in communal offerings. Here, you could use it next time you have a communal offering. Now, ve'i amat yesh kevel of now. So that's if I amart ein kevel nesachim. Now, ve'i amart yesh kevel nesachim. Now, if you say that there is kevel nesachim, that there are a unit that they can't be broken up into different configurations, ad de mimale lehu lo karbe. Well, then you won't be able to libate any of that wine until you add another log. So now there are 6 logs, which is the equivalent for a cow, and now you can libate them. What do we do? What do we do? Amar Abai says, Abai, Tashma, come in here. Shisha l'nedava. So the Mishnah in Masechta Shkolim describes that there were, as I mentioned, 13 pushkes on Har Abayis. 6 of those pushkes, of those collection boxes, were for nedavas, for these donations, for these money that would be ultimately go towards kayetz hamizbeach offerings. Now, v'aminan, and we say, keneged me, what are these 6 pushkes? Keneged moser chatas, one of them is for moser chatas. What do you do if you come to the Beis HaMikdash and you're going to bring a korban chatas? So you come with, ich weiß nicht, I don't know how much a korban chatas costs. How much does a 1-year-old sheep cost? Who knows? I should ask my friend Yosef Gutman. How much a 1-year-old sheep costs. Good to know. I don't know. I don't know. How much does a 1-year-old sheep cost? I have no clue. A 1-year-old sheep cost. How much did that cost? Oh boy. I don't know. I don't know, 400 shekels? 500 shekels? Let's say 500 shekels. So you come to Yerushalayim with 500 shekels in your pocket to buy a sheep. and it turns out costs 350 shekels. You got an extra 150 shekels. So what do? You go to the pushke on our bias, and you put the 150 shekels in the pushke. So that's Moser Chatas, the leftover money from having purchased the Korban Chatas, the change. Umoser Ashamis, and similarly, if that happened with a Korban Asham. Umoser Asham Nazir, similarly for the Asham Nazir, there was a separate pushka for Asham Nazir, because Asham Nazir is different than Asham, a regular Asham. Regular Asham is coming to be Mechaper, whereas an Asham Nazir is coming to allow you, to permit you, as we mentioned recently, to cut your hair or drink wine. Umoser Asham Mitzara, also an Asham Mitzara, which permits you back in the congregation. Now, these next two things, there's a note that you can delete them. If you delete them, I don't know what you would replace with them with, not necessarily, but anyways, Umoser Kinin, Umoser Minchas Chote. Okay, leftovers, extra change from a nest of birds or Minchas Chote, fine. Now, the point being, there are these 6 pushkas. Now, the Im Isa, Abai says, look, if the answer was that you were allowed to reconfigure these logs, right? So if it was that you can bring, if it was that, essentially if there was ein keva, if it's ein keva linisachim, which means that you can libate 4 of them and you'll have this extra one and you could sell it and take its money and put it in a pushke, but then lisakin shofar achrina keneged most nisachim. Well, then there should be an extra for, there should be a dedicated pushka for this purpose. That if you brought 5 loaves of wine and you libate 4 of them and you have an extra one and you sell it and you take the money, you're going to need a pushka for it, but there isn't a pushka for it. So it must mean that yesh keval nisachim, and you can't libate 4 of them and have an extra one. Rather, you have to bring 1 more so that you have 6. But the Gemara says, not necessarily. I don't agree with that, says the Gemara. Hanoch linidvos tzibur azle. So the Gemara says, look, let's say that you can divide them up, right? Let's say that ein keva linisachim, and you can libate 4 of them and you'll have an extra one. Okay, so Abai said, aren't you going to need a dedicated pushkit? No, you won't. Why? Because these are for communal offerings, right? The extra log of wine is going to be for a communal offering, right? Theoretically, you would take the money, put it in the pushkit, and it'll be used to buy a korban ola, a communal korban ola. Well, hane shchiche, there's plenty of communal offerings happening at the Beis HaMikdash. Every day, there are korban tamids, 2 of them, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Each one, okay, 1 of that, fine. So, efshir demitztarfe demar v'demar b'adi adodi v'karve. So, there's plenty of people bringing korbanos. You have an extra log of wine. Just instead of selling it and taking the money and putting in a pushka, just take the extra log of wine. Find somebody else who also has an extra log of wine. Join them together, and now and together they can be brought. Let's say if you got 3 of them together, they can be brought with a korban tamid shel shachar, to korban tamid shel ben arbayim. So the Gemara says, look, you can argue that ein kevalin esachim, and that you can take 4 of them and libate them, and the extra one, find some other people that have extras, and you'll join together, and you'll put together 3 or 4 that could be used for a sheep, a ram, whatever. Okay. So we could theoretically argue that ein kevalin esachim, and they can be reconfigured. Omar Rove says, Rove Toshma Kamanir Ezra. The pasuk says, which parak in Sefer Bamidbar talks about Nisachim, friends? It's a good opportunity to drill this into our brains. Parak Tesvav, Parsha Shlach. Parak Tesvav is where the Torah talks about, is the Parsha of Nisachim. And in that Parsha of Nisachim, the pasuk says, I'm reading the pasuk called Ezrach Yaise Kocha Es Eile La'akavisha Rech Nchoch Lashem. That pasuk is extra. We don't really need it. We already explained what all the libations are. Well, why do I need? Everyone's going to do that. Why do I need it? Because it teaches us stuff. It's extra to teach us. It teaches us that you can donate wine libations. You can just donate wine You don't need a korban. You don't need you could donate just wine. The chama, how much? Shlosha lugin, 3 logs. 3 logs. You want to donate wine? 3 logs. Uminayin she'im ratzu la'osif Yosef. How do you know if you want to add more? Gizun teheit. You want to offer 4, 6? Sure. Talmud Omer yeh. It will be to add on to it that it could even be more. Yochel yifchos. Can you offer less than 3? Talmud Omer kocha, like this. No, not 1, not 2. At least 3. Ma Yosef. And when the pasuk is saying that you can add on, what do I need the pasuk to tell me that you can add on? Oh, so I just said 4, 4, 6, but actually says the pasuk. Look, says the Gemara, ilema arba v'shisha ma'ishna. One second. So if you're going to say, one second. So we had this word yiyeh in the pasuk, and it's saying for the word yiyeh, you can even add on, right? So we said you can donate wine libations to the Beis Hamikdash. How much? 3 logs. Can you add more than that? Sure. The pasuk says yiyeh. The pasuk is teaching us you can add more. Now, how much more? If we're talking about 4 or 6, I don't need the pasuk to teach me that. Just like you can bring 3. Why can you bring 3? Well, 3 aligns with a sheep. Well, 4 aligns with a ram, 6 aligns with a cow. So I don't need a pasuk. I just use my noggin. Just like I can offer 3, I can also offer 4 or 6. So rather, right? So yotze ilem arba v'shisha ma'ishna shlosha dechazu lekeves. Why can I donate 3 loaves of wine? Because 3 a lot matches the amount of wine for a sheep. Arba v'shisha namu chazu le'ayilufar. Well, 4 and 6 align with a ram and a cow, respectively. I don't need a pasuk for that. So what's the pasuk teaching me? When the pasuk says you can even add what on? Elalav chamisha. It's saying you can bring 5. Vishma mina. So if the Torah is saying you can bring 5, well then clearly we're talking about ein keva, and that you'd be able to take 4 of them, offer them for offer them as wine libations, and the extra will be used for a public korban. Vishma mina ein keva l'nisachim, that there is no keva for nisachim, and you can take 4 of them, and the extra one would be for public offering. Shma mina givaldik. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, v'a'anan lo t'nanochi. But 1 second, Rav Ashi says, whoa. Are you telling me that you're allowed to bring 5 loaves of wine? That's against our Mishnah. What did our Mishnah say, friends? Ein misnadvin log shnayim b'chamisha. That's pretty clear, friends. You can't bring 5 loaves of wine. You can't donate 5 loaves of wine. So I understand how Rav is telling us that you can donate 5 loaves of wine. The pasuk says so. Well, there's a steer between the pasuk and the Mishnah. So va'ana lo t'nanochi ein misnadvin log shnayim b'chamisha. So katoni chamisha dumya d'shnayim. Is somebody knocking on the door? 1 second. I don't know why anybody would knock on the door. I'm obviously not going to answer it. I don't know. I just took off the noise cancellation from my... Yeah, someone's totally knocking on the door. I'm not... No, there's no chance I'm going to answer it. Unless it's my neighbor. No. Oh, it's somebody with tzitzis. Who the heck? Oh, I think somebody's collecting money. Sorry, next time. I'll go upon him. Now, I'll go upon him. So where were we? So Amar Rav Ashi, we're in the middle of learning. So I'm reading that again. Amar Rav Ashi, va'anan t'nan lo t'nan ochi ein misnadvin log shnayim v'chamisha. Didn't we say you can't bring 5? And Rava just learned that from a pasuk you can bring 5. But we said you can't bring 5. Ma pitom katoni chamisha dumi d'shnayim. Mashnayim dilo chazu klal. Just like 2, I kind of lost my train of thought. It was on low. Wait, where am I? Right? Katani chamisha dumi d'shnayim. Right? Mashnayim dilo chazu klal. Av chamisha nami dilo chazu klal. Okay, great. I hope I didn't skip anything. I got a little distracted by somebody knocking on my door. It doesn't happen very often, friends. People know not to come. My friends call me. They say, "Sorry, I'm not disturbing." I said, "No, you're not disturbing." Akoponim. So, no. Yeah, I think everyone assumes that if they like call me or something, they'll be disturbing me. I wonder why. Akoponim. So we said that the Mishnah says you can't offer 1, 2, 5 logs. So who's this? Rav Ashi wants to argue that just like you can't offer 2 logs, you also can't offer 5. I.e., just like you can't offer 2 at all, you also can't offer 5 at all, right? Because 2, what are you going to do with it, Bechlal? 5, at least you could say, maybe 4 or whatever. But 2, there's nothing to do with. So just like you can't offer 2 at all, you can't offer 5 at all. How could Rava be saying to offer 5? So the Gemara answers, Midi area, no, they're different. Hakidisa veha kidisa. No, they're different. When the Mishnah says you can't offer 2, it means you can't offer 2 at all. When it says you can't offer 5, lichatchila, you can't offer 5. B'di'eved is okay if you offer 5, and we would offer 4 alone, and one would be a nidava. Amar Abaye says, Abaye, im timtzulomar in keva li nisachim. Now, great. Abaye now says, fine. So if you want to say that there's no keva for nisachim, when you have 5 logs, you could take 4 of them and libate them. The extra one will be a nidava. So im timtzulomar ein keva li nisachim, ha ein keva li nisachim. Okay. So if we say that there's no keva for nisachim, okay, so you could divide them up and whatever. However, im timtzulomar yesh keva li nisachim, but if you say that there is keva li nisachim, and therefore, when you bring, right, as we said earlier, so what does it mean if there's keva li nisachim? Well, for example, if you bring 5 logs, you have to keep them together. You can't divide them up. So you have to add more, right? So if you have 5, you'd have to add another one so that there's 6, and then they can be libated together. So the Gemara says, look, if you say that there is keva, well then, adasar pshitali. So I know what to do up until 5. It means that if I bring 1 log, I'm going to have to add 2 more so that there's 3. If I bring 2 logs, I have to add another one so that there's 3. If there's 3, so there's 3. If there's 4, there's 4. If there's 5, I have to add another one so that there's 6. If there's 7, well, then that's going to be enough for 4 and 3, right? Which that doesn't seem to be any issue of keva. I guess you would just, because I guess you could libate all of it. I guess there's no extra, right? I guess nothing is extra for a nadava, right? So there's 7 can be divided 4 and 3. Everything's going to be libated. 8 is 2 rams, 4 and 4. 9 is, let's say, a cow and a sheep, or 3 sheep. 10 would be a cow and a ram, whatever, right? You can get there. However, what happens when you get to 11? Achad asar, but when it comes to 11, mibayali. What do we say when we get to 11? So, gaver l'shnei parim kam michaven. Do we say that if he brings 11 loaves of wine, he intended really for 2 cows, and we'll say, okay, so bring another one so that you have 12 loaves, which is enough for 2 cows. Each cow is 6 loaves. And you'd have to bring another one so that there's 12. O dilmo, or maybe 11. Maybe 11, what he's intending is 2 rams and a sheep, right? Each ram is 4 and a sheep is 3. So 2 rams is 8 and a sheep is another 3. That's 11. So trey mechad mina v'chad mechad mina amrinon olo mai teku. Do we say that we can assume that he had intention for 2 rams and a sheep, right? So you got 2 different types. You got rams, you got sheep. 2 rams and a sheep. Or maybe we say, no, that wasn't his intention and it was for 2 cows. Teku, we say that it is a tie. Sheesh. Sorry, that person knocking on the door threw me. I'm sorry if I got interrupted, a little choppy there at the end. I got, my flow kind of broke, got fractured. But okay. Anyways, So what did we say? We said that you could bring wine libations. When you bring wine libations, it's got to be 3, 4, or 6. The shaila is, what happens if you have, for example, 5? So we said, do you have to add 1 more so you'll offer all of them together without having any extras that need to now become nedavas? Or can you offer libate 4 of them and you have the extra one? It seemed that we were leaning towards saying, from the fact that Abaye asked this question about if we say that there's no keva, if we say that there is keva, it sounded like it's ultimately, I guess, not totally resolved, but it did seem like Rava And even the answer to Abaye earlier was kind of leaning in the direction that ein keva, and that you would be able to, for example, if you had 5, offer 4 of them, and the extra one would be offered as a nidava. Friends, and now we get up to the last Mishnah of the second to last parak that discusses, similar to what we just discussed about wine libations, oil libations. Can you simply donate to the Beis Hamikdash just straight oil? It says the Mishnah, Misnadvin yayin ve'ein misnadvin shemen div Rabbi Akiva. Says the holy Rabbi Akiva, his Sfira Sa'omer. Of course, we're thinking about Rabbi Akiva and his 24,000 Talmidim. Al Kaponim. Says Rabbi Akiva, Misnadvin yayin, that we can donate wine, as we learned about. However, ve'ein misnadvin shemen, not straight oil. Div Rabbi Akiva. Reb Tarfin Omer, says Reb Tarfin, misnadvin shemen, that says Reb Tarfin, you can offer straight oil. Reb Tarfin says, Reb Tarfin, ma mematzinu biyayin shu bachova uvanadava. Well, says Reb Tarfin, look, when it comes to wine can be offered. There are times when it's obligated to bring wine. For example, Korban Tamid. You got to bring, right? Comes with wine. And also you can bring wine on its own. You can donate wine, as we've been talking about. So Shemen, so Reb Tarfin argues the same for oil. She'uba chova, that obviously oil comes as part of minchas nisachim. So ba nedava, you can also donate just oil. Amar loy Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says to Reb Tarfin, loim amar b'yayin shekin karvim chavasu b'fnei atzmo. Yeah, but there's a difference between wine and oil, and that is when wine is offered as part of an obligation. For example, the Korban Tamid, it's offered independently on its own, right? You'll take the flour, you'll take the oil, you'll mix them together. But the wine, you just take the wine and pour it down the shisen on its own. So therefore, I can also donate it on its own. Tomar b'shemen she'enu karivim chovasu b'fnei atzmo. But oil is different, argues Rabbi Akiva, because oil, when it's brought as part of the Korban Tamid, for example, it's mixed together with the flour. It's not brought on its own. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva argues that you can't donate oil, straight oil, on its own. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Ein shnayim misnadvin isaron echad. 2 people cannot go in together on one isaron, right? Reuven and Shimon can't join together and jointly bring 1 isaron of flour. Aval, but misnadvin ola v'shlamim v'of afilu preda achas. But when it comes to a korban ola, if they want to jointly bring a korban ola, a korban shlamim, a bird, gesundheit, that's completely fine. Zogdi Gemore, Amar Rove, says Rove, Midivrei Shneim Nilmod, from the machlokes between Reb Tarfin and Reb Akiva, that it's about, can you offer oil on its own, can you offer wine on its own, but they don't argue about, can you offer a minchas nisachim, which is interesting, right? Can you donate to the Beis Hamikdash a minchas nisachim? What would that look like? Well, when you bring a korban, what do you bring? Let's say a sheep. You bring oil, you bring flour, you bring wine. You mix together the oil and the flour, the wine you pour down the shisen. Can you just bring that as a donation? Says Rave, apparently so. From the fact that Reb Tarfin and Reb Akiva and the previous Mishnah and this Mishnah, we're only talking about, well, I guess the machlokes between Reb Tarfin and Reb Akiva, they're arguing about, can you bring oil? There's no argument about, can you bring a minchas nisachim itself. So apparently you can. You can donate oil, flour, wine, and they will be brought on the mizbeach. So Nilmod, let's learn misnadev adam mincha nisachim, minchas nisachim b'chol yom, that a person can donate a minchas nisachim every day. Pshita, that's obvious. Ma'odetema, the Gemara says, well, maybe it's not so obvious. Look, after all, we've been learning Masechta Menachos for the past 104 days. Minchas Nidava, Gali Barachmana, we've learned all about Minchas Nidavas. We've learned about Minchas Solis. We've learned about Minchas Machvas. We've learned about Minchas Marcheshes. We've learned about Chalas, right? Maifasoner Chalas. We've learned about Maifasoner Akikins. We don't talk about donating Minchas Nisachims. So it's not so obvious. Those 5, Hani chamisha menachos in tveilo, but not minchas nisachim. Kamash malon hanimile bestame. And what Rava is teaching us is, look, if you just say, I'm going to bring a korban mincha, bringing a minchas nisachim is not an option in that case. You would have to bring one of the 5 declared types. Soles, machvas, marcheshes, chalus, rekikin. However, but if you say, I am going to bring a minchas nisachim, you can bring flour, oil, and wine. Ein Shnayim is Nadvin. The Mishnah had said that 2 people cannot jointly bring an isaron of flour for a minchas nedava. My time, why not? Takriv. If it's because by a minchas nedava it says takriv, singular, ola if yakriv. By an ola also it says singular, and yet you can jointly bring an ola. Ela ola my time dichsiv lo olo seichem. Well, ola it says olo seichem plural, so people could jointly bring it. Mincha namiok if the mincho seichem plural. Ela mishum dichsiv ba nefesh. Rather, it's because the pasuk says only by menachos nefesh, a soul, a single soul. The mincha must be brought by a single soul. Tan namiochi. Which maybe that's the nefesh elokis. What do you think? Tan namiochi. We learn in a brisa like this. Rebbe almost says, Rebbe asher yakriv korbano. Where am I? Okay, it's Tan namiochi. We learn in a brisa like this. Rebbe almost says, Rebbe asher yakriv korbano l'chon nedrem v'chon nedvosam asher yakrivu la'Hashem akol boim b'shutfis. All types of asher yakrivu la'Hashem, they will offer to God. All korbanos can be offered jointly, in partnership. Tzazamin. Lo salik akasav ele mincha shnemar nefesh. The only exception is a korban mincha. Mincha must be brought by one person because the pasuk says nefesh. Says the Gemara to wrap up the 12th parak of Masechta Menachos. Amar Reb Yitzchak. Says Reb Yitzchak. Mipnei ma nishtanes mincha. Why is mincha different than all of the other korbanos shenemar ba nefesh, that dafka by a mincha, and by not by the other korbanos, but by mincha it says nefesh, because Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Rabbanu Shalom says, Mi darko la'avi mincha. Who usually brings a korban mincha, and not the fancier sheep and goats and cows? Is bringing flour to the Rabbanu Shalom. Ani, a poor person. Maila ani olav ki'ilu ikriv nafshu lefanai. I treat it, says the Rabbanu Shalom, that this poor fellow bringing his little shtickle isaron of flour, I view it like he brought his whole soul and offered that before me. Amar Bitzak says, Bitzak manishtana minchas. Mincha, why is mincha different? Shnei ba chamisha mine tigun, that there are 5 different types of oily, floury offerings. Halalu mashal lamelech bosav dam. It's a parable. It's a metaphor to a king of flesh and blood. Shasalo ohavo suda, that his friend made for him, somebody who's beloved to him, made for him a feast. V'yodeabo, but the king knows shu ani, that he's a poor person. Armalo, and he says, you know what? Asay li min chamisha mine tigun. Just make me 5 types of simple flour, oil. That's all I need. Kadesh mimcha, I'll get some enjoyment from you, and that will be more than enough. Adon olach hamenachos v'anesachim. We'll come back to Perek hamenachos v'anesachim. Gevaldig. Friends, on Daf Kuf Daled of Masechta Menachos, we learned about donating wine libations. You can donate wine to the Mizbeach, or just wine to be poured on the Mizbeach. However, when you donate it, you donate either 3, 4, or 6 loaves, or anything above 6. Not 1, 2, or 5, because they don't align with any existing amounts of wine, not with the 3 of a sheep, the 4 of a ram, or the 6 of a cow. There was a big discussion in the Gemara then. What if you do bring 5? How do we treat it? What do you do with it? Do we say they have to all be offered together, so you'd have to bring an extra one so that there's 6, which is like a cow? Or do we say, no, they don't have to all be offered together. You can bring 4, which is the amount of a ram, and then the extra one you will donate. It was all a big discussion. It was not particularly conclusive. I thought it leaned more to maybe saying that they're not what's called keva, and you could kind of offer 4 and have the extra one as an adava. In the middle, we had somebody stop by the house for the mitzvah of tzedakah. I think I could only really see his girth and his tzitzis. But I think I recognize the girth and the tzitzis from the other week, but not upon him. So, and then we got to the final Mishnah about donating oil libations. We saw machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and Reb Tarfon. Rabbi Akiva says only oil libations, only wine libations, not oil libations. Reb Tarfon says even oil libations. Friends, one last thing. We also said that at Korban Mincha, you can't have 2 friends, partners in a Korban Mincha, but all other Korbanos, you can have a partnership in them, friends. That was Daf Kuf Daled of Masechta Menachos. I'll catch you all tomorrow, where we will be jumping in to the 13th and final chapter of Masechta Menachos. How exciting is that? Have a great day. Cheers.